tonight. Without you here inside, guess you had a place you had to chase. I know your eyes so bright, I know the walls inside, and I saw the truth behind your face. 'Cause I know you're lost when you run away into the dark where the shadows play, taking all my will just to stand alone. When are you coming home? Even if the sky does fall, even if they take it all, there's no pain that I won't go through. Even if I have to die for you. When all the fires burn, when the world keeps overturning, there's nothing that I won't do. Even if I have to die for you. One day the earth will open wide, and I'll follow you inside. The only hell I know is without you. When galaxies collide, we'll be lost in different skies. I'll send my rocket ship to find you. 'Cause I know you're lost when you run away into the dark where the shadows play, taking all my will just to stand alone until I bring you home. Even if the sky does fall, even if they take it all, there's no pain that I won't go through. Even if I have to die for you. When all the fires burn, when the world keeps overturning, there's nothing that I won't do. Even if I have to die for you. If the sun grows cold along the way, if the stars don't light the way, when you crash back down below, I'll search the skies and follow. Even if the sky does fall, even if they take it all, I can't see but I'll follow you. Even if I die, when all the fires burn, when the world keeps overturning, there's nothing that I won't do. Even if I have to die for you.
You gotta love it when technology wants to be retarded. But you already know what it is, man. We are back here to search for more game on the ground for them hungry hounds who just got at the pound and are ready for the next round. So with that being said, make sure y'all grab your snacks, y'all drinks, y'all weed, whatever the case may be. Probably don't grab the last three things that I just said because you more than likely don't need them. What you need is the exact opposite. You need to fast and you need to drink water and don't smoke. So with that being said, man, y'all can see the title of this episode, this live, whatever you want to call it. We are checking out we are getting back to the Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines, and Nick Fuentes stream. It's going to be very interesting because this has been very interesting. So with that being said, man, let's go ahead and get into this. Let me go ahead and change this layout real quick. Boom. And boom. All right, bet. So you already know. Turn the playback speed up a little bit. Let's get into this in 3, 2, 1.
You reframe it. I can go ahead and go first here on this one. So one of the positions that people always get fucking pissed off at me about is I say, need to have sex with 50 women before you start thinking about even getting married, right? Make 6 figures a year, have at least half a year of savings in a bank account somewhere, be in good shape, obviously be 35 years old or older, and then have 50 women. Now, no one really argues with me about the 4 things I mentioned before, but when I talk about having sex with 50 girls, people really harping on that 50 number and say that's degenerate, blah, blah, blah. But the reason why I say that is because I want guys to be in a position where sex is no longer novel to them, right? So that they can be in a position of dominance where their girl can't leverage sex against it for compliance, right? This happy wife, happy life bullshit, right? Just because I understand how feminism and modern women in general have changed the dating dynamic or the marriage dynamic to even to the point where we got people that are religious like Nick that can even acknowledge it. So a lot of people mischaracterize that position. It's like, oh, it gotta be a hard 50. Look, dude, it could be 5. It could be 1. But my point is I just need you to get to a point where sex is no longer novel to you and your wife can't hold it against you. So that's my position that people always fucking misconstrue and try to attack me on. But when I actually explain it full through, they're like, oh, that makes sense. But you know how people are. They watch clips. They don't watch full content ever. So what would you guys say is one of your positions that's always fucking mischaracterized and you got to clarify? And then if you could do it again, how would you reframe it now knowing what you know?
I mean, it depends on where it's coming from. With regard to the normie crowd, it's like everything, and it's always been everything. You know, they mischaracterize my position on race, Israel, women, you name it. Or if it's from the right, I would say the biggest one is that I'm an extremist. I mean, I don't think I'm an extremist at all. I think I'm moderate. It's kind of like my new thing. Because I talk to these people and they're anticipating me to be like a raging caricature of a skinhead or something like that. And when it really comes down to it, with regard to all these different issues, I think that what is called far right, what is called anti-Semitic, what is called white supremacist, it's really just reality. You know, I had a clip that went viral over the past couple of weeks where I'm talking about black people in Chicago. And we emerged from a time recently where there was so much political correctness around the subject of race and race relations between blacks and whites. And so I think the conversation is sufficient now. People see my take, and what I'm saying is like, look, the city is a shithole, and it's a shithole because you got carjackings happening all the time. It's because you have this like impropriety everywhere. You know, we talk about black people in America, people talk about fatigue, fatigue from dealing with black people. It's like we all know in our lived experience in our day-to-day, what we can expect from black people is people being inconsiderate, people being rude, aggressive, menacing, not following the rules. And that's kind of always been my position. Is like, on some level, people look at a person like myself or others and they think we want to ship all the black people out of America. We want to kill them all or something like that. And it's like, they've been here forever. They've been here for 400 years. They've been here longer than my family's been here. We just want them to behave. We just want to hold everybody to a standard where people are polite, respectful, clean, decent, peaceful, and the rest of it. And it's like, now that I'm back on these mainstream platforms, I do a monologue about it. And even the black people are all saying, yeah, I agree with him. I get where he's coming from. So, that's just like one example. I think that we really just need to return to common sense, and not like the gay common sense like Donald Trump, where, he says common sense is like no transgenderism. I'm talking about like old school racism being common sense, where it's like, yeah, we all know not all black people are bad. We also know what's going on with them, and yeah, we don't have some weird...
I'm not gonna lie, bro, when you said gay common sense, that threw me off for a second. My bad, yo.
Desire to like dominate women or, bully them. But we're also like, yeah, they kind of need to be put in their place. They do need a strong hand. They do need someone to treat them in an assertive way. And even as far as the Jews are concerned, for centuries, for millennia, we know what's going on with the Jews. Now, we don't want to kill them all. We don't want to hurt them. People say you're a Nazi. You want another Holocaust? Absolutely not. At the same time, we know they fucking love Israel and they're very tribalist. Is it a good idea to have them run in Congress when they're walking in with an IDF uniform? Obviously not. So we just need that kind of like old school common sense. I would say that's maybe the rebrand. I would say I'm moderate. That's the misunderstanding.
Yeah, taking trips to Israel when
One thing I will say is that when it comes to like Congress and people with leadership positions or whatever in our government, it should be mandatory. It doesn't matter what background you come from, black, white, Asian, Mexican, Russian, German, Israeli, Palestinian, Arab, I don't care, Indian. If you're in Congress or any type of position of leadership within our government, you should automatically have to be America first. You should automatically have an America first mindset. Not all these other countries first. Straight up.
they should be figuring out the Epstein file, shit like that. And I'll tell you this, Nick, like, it's funny to me because, you know, people that aren't familiar with you or whatever, one of the first things they say is, you're friends with a white supremacist. And I'm like, you know, this guy hates black people. Why are you even around? And I'm like, that's not true. Like, he doesn't. I know him in person. I've known him for a few years now. Very cordial, very nice. And then people forget that you literally helped Ye with Ye 24. So if you were so racist, why would you be helping a black man become president of the United States? So I always laugh when they say this stuff, when they say that dumb shit. But what about you, Andrew? What would you say is one of your positions that's always mischaracterized whenever you do interviews? I know a lot of people, there's a bunch with you I know they mischaracterize.
Yeah, but none of the mischaracterizations are genuine. None of them are genuine mischaracterizations. It's to find people hoax all over again. Yeah. It's a wrap-up smear. They do it on purpose, and they know exactly what they're doing. They take something you've said, and they take a small part of it, and they take it out of context, and they repeat it over and over and over again. As I said, the whole Christian, even the Jewish right wing, no one had a problem with me really till I talked about October 8th, and they had a huge issue with me all of a sudden. And it was all instant and overnight, and it changed instantly and completely. So none of it's genuine. And, you know, Nick's pointing out very basic pattern recognition. That's why humans are alive. We learned the pattern recognition that if you go near the tiger, you get eaten by the tiger. Yep. If you eat that plant, it's poisonous. It's fucking pattern recognition at this point. It's not racism. It's not anti-Semitism. The things we're pointing out are simply very well-known pattern recognition, and people are too afraid to say them. But I don't think any of my viewpoints are genuinely misunderstood. I don't believe I could have said them in any other way to make people understand them. I believe no matter how I said it, they would have taken it, twisted it, and weaponized it. And one of the things that's most important you have to understand about the world is when they weaponize things against you, they always weaponize virtue. They're not going to weaponize the fact that, you know, they're not going to sit there and pretend that you're a bad person unless they get to be a great person. So they're going to come along and pretend they give a shit about women so much so they can attack me. And they're going to come along and pretend they give a fuck about the Holocaust so they can attack Nick and you guys.
You know what's crazy, dude, is the fact that it doesn't matter when you're on that level that Andrew Tate's on, that Nick is on, that Myron's on. It doesn't matter. Whatever you say will be twisted and used against you. Because people don't like you because they're controlled by the Matrix. And the Matrix says you're not supposed to like this person. The Matrix be playing Simon Says. Oh, Simon Says don't like Andrew Tate. Simon Says don't like Nick. Simon Says don't like Myron. And people just don't like them. Just not because they have found any legitimate reason themselves to not like them, but because Simon Says don't like them, which is crazy.
Me is all just weaponized virtue garbage. It's the oldest trick in the book, but a lot of people still fall for it. So if you're going to tell the truth in this world, if you're going to sit there and say, yeah, this is the actual reality of what's happening, you're always going to get pinned with some bullshit, no matter how you say it. And the most important thing you can do is not give a fuck and double down. Every time I got in trouble, the BBC used to print articles about my emergency meetings when I said racist words. So then I started saying them 15 times a show, so many times that they can't print it anymore. You can't do the same article every fucking day, nigger. So I can't do it. You have to double down on it. And a lot of people are afraid to do that because of the backlash. But no matter what you try and do and say, they're just going to attack you with it all day long.
Speaking of mischaracterized positions, and I kind of want to throw this to Nick real quick, because I think I've been seeing so many people talk about this, and I don't think they give you a fair shot. So we got a lot of people watching right now. By the way, guys, if you're watching on Fresh Fit, I'm going to switch over to Myron Gaines X on both Rumble and YouTube. So come on over. I'm going to end the Fresh Fit stream here in a second. But I'm going to ask this question first. So, Nick, a lot of people say that you are a undercover Dem. You used to support Trump, now you don't support him.
An undercover Dem. I have never heard of an undercover dim, bro. That is crazy. Yo, people be coming up with the craziest things ever, bro. An undercover dim. That is hilarious. Oh my gosh, bro. These people are just retarded. They be coming up with these things just out of nowhere, bro.
Have an issue with JD Vance, you're criticizing him because you're a hater, right? People come at you and say that you're doing, you're trying to mess with the Republican Party, blah, blah, blah. Right? Now, I know the reasons why, right? And I make sense. But I don't think, like, people have given you a fair shot when you give your criticisms of Trump and his running mate, JD Vance. And I want to give you credit as well because you called it April of last year that JD was going to be the vice president. And then, boom, fast forward to July in the RNC, and he gets, put in there. Because I remember I was there, right? And the first thing he's talking about is attacking Iran, punching him in the nose. So I think it's pretty much undisputed now in the right wing, the conservative media, that your predictions have been damn near flawless. So if you could kind of just go over, because I think a lot of people mischaracterize your position on Trump and on JD Vance. I'll kind of just throw it to you there, and you can just take it wherever you want. And guys, come on over to Myron Gaines X on everywhere, on Rumble, YouTube, whatever. I'm going to end the freshman stuff, but go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the whole Democrat thing is concerned, it's very amusing to me. It's very amusing. I almost don't even mind it because, people are fucking retarded about politics.
That,
like
bro.
on some...
That's crazy. I just said that, bro.
level, you'd like to think that we're starting to get it. The people are waking up. They see what Israel's doing. And then at the same time, you have to keep the Pareto principle in mind, the 80-20 principle, which is that like 80% of the population is scum. They're just like worthless scum. Now, they're not worthless, but they're low IQ followers, whatever you want to call it. It's a 20-80 principle or an 80-20 principle. And here's what I mean by this. As far as I'm concerned, we are so through the rabbit hole. Like, I got red pilled when I turned 18 and I was in college 10 years ago, whatever it was. And we're at the point now where you have these basic normies. They're just discovering Israel. At the same time, I go and criticize Trump for something or another thing. And people say, yeah, but I mean, the Democrat would have been worse, don't you think? But the Democrats would have been far worse. This is better than Kamala, wouldn't you say? And to me, this is just such like a basic mechanism of control, which is how the regime will play the right off of the left. I almost feel like it's passé. It's trite to even suggest that the right and left are the same. And yet it needs to be said over and over and over again. The Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats. They always have been. Who brought us to Iraq? The Republicans. Who made the economy the way it is? Republicans. Where did NAFTA come from? Yeah, Bill Clinton signed it, but it came from the Republicans. It's like, so, people like to say, oh, but the Dems, but the left, but this, that, and the other. The Republicans are the same. They are virtually the same. The platform is effectively indistinguishable. They have the same donors. They go to the same parties. They're the same people. And so, like Dinesh D'Souza and I debated back in June, and Dinesh said this to me. He said, you're starting to sound like a Democrat. I'm like, Democrats, Republicans, are we really still doing this thing? As far as I'm concerned, it's like there are the people that are disempowered, and then there are the people that are in power. Now, whether you or I are voting Republican or Democrat, whether we watch Fox News or MSNBC, we're still goyim. We're still stupid wage slaves. We're still a bunch of stupid, disenchanted, or I should say disenfranchised wage slaves that are eating Zog slop, watching slop on TV. And here we are arguing, it should be Biden, it should be Trump. There's continuity. Trump armed the Ukrainians first. Biden continued it. Trump gave us the vaccine. Biden mandated it. Trump started the Chinese tariffs. Biden did the CHIPS Act and continued the tariffs. Trump created the corporate tax rate. Biden kept it in place. Trump extended it when he got back in. It's all the same shit. It's always been all the same shit. So, and like I said, I feel like George Carlin saying that. I feel like an edgy midwit when I say, oh, it's all one big club and you ain't in it. Yeah, I feel like a big fucking stupid midwit when I say that. And yet it still needs to be said because you have these dummies that are like, we have to vote Republican every time forever or else the Democrats they're gonna what? They're gonna make a vaccine. They're gonna let in illegal aliens. Trump did the same thing. So, the promise of Trump is that he was gonna break us out of that. He didn't. And now we need to recognize he's just another Republican candidate and act accordingly. That was always my message.
Shit. What about JD Vance? Because a lot of people come at you and say, "Oh, you're just attacking him for no reason."
There's a mouthful, I tell you that. I'd have to do a lot of research on a lot of things that he said. Because I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, it's not like Nick to lie, but I'm not just going to go off and agree with everything he said, but I'm not going to disagree with anything that he said either, because I don't know. What I will say, though, that I do agree with is that it's both, on both sides, the left or the right, Democrats or Republicans, whatever, there's bullshit on both sides, just straight up. Straight up. It's a swamp on both ends. And y'all sit around and still argue about this, that, and the third. And then it makes me wonder, when are the people really going to get together and overthrow the entire government? If they're ever smart enough to realize that. When would that happen? Would it happen? How would it happen? And we can have our freedom back again. Go back to farming, having these huge farms, growing crops, raising cattle, sell it, make a living off of it. All those things. But people love being slaves. People love to be slaves.
Reason why, what's your gripe with him? I know you've mentioned before that he's another Trumper and everything else like that, but what's your position on him? Because you're one of the few people that have been extremely skeptical of him since the beginning.
This is to me or Andrew?
Oh, no, to you, Nick.
Oh, to me.
Yeah.
I didn't talking to Andrew. For me, with regard to Trump, in my opinion, it was a failure after the inauguration in 2017. Actually, after the election in 2016. Because I was a ride or die Trump guy in 16. I was a ride or die guy for Trump in 2020. But looking back retrospectively, it all came down after the election in 16. And I really made this point last year during the third election that he was in. The promise of the Trump campaign originally it wasn't that we would be marginally better than the Democrats. Because that's what people are saying now. They say, well, it's better than the alternative. Okay. But in 16, the promise was not, we're going to be better than the Democrats at the minimum. The promise in 16 is that Trump would be a Caesar-like figure that would take over the government, eliminate all corruption, and literally seize power and make the country great by force. That was the promise. People forget that. Because a lot of people weren't around back then. Maybe they're too young. Maybe they weren't on board. Maybe they weren't Trump supporters. But in 16, he said in his inaugural or in his announcement speech, actually in June of 2015, he said, we need a leader. We need someone who is literally going to take the country and make it great. And I loved that language. Take the country. I alone can fix it. I will take this country and make it great. That was the kind of rhetoric. He said in April in 2016, he said, we will no longer surrender this country or its people to the siren song of globalism. In October 2016, he said Hillary Clinton is controlled by international bankers, donors, special interests. They're colluding to take over the country. The rhetoric, people forget how hardcore it was from the very beginning. And the promise of 16, to put it succinctly, was anti-corruption. It was that the people... Well, and what's more, he said the people are not being put first because the politicians are controlled by the money. He said, we don't have real victories. We never win. Our people are not being prioritized. And why is this? But politicians won't take action. Why? They're paralyzed by money. They're not really in control. The money is in control. He said, so the only way to fix it is if an extremely rich person from the oligarchy, without taking donor money, without the special interest, if one person could get in and kind of get in the middle and get rid of all this corruption and ignore the media, ignore the press, ignore the money, and only then could they actually take action and deliver real reform, real revolutionary change. That's the kind of shit that, like, dude, like, yes, that is what we needed.
So I have a question for you both, because I think we're going to wrap up here.
Well, see, this is what I have to say about that. Number one, you have to be retarded to really believe that Trump was going to take the country by force and wipe out the entire government and rebuild it without any type of resistance. There's no way that somebody can do that without any type of resistance. That's something that requires time, effort, and a team. So you have to be retarded to sit there and believe everything that he says at face value. Second of all, I don't think that Trump understood the amount of resistance back in 2016 that he was going to be facing. I'm sure he knew it was going to be tough, but I don't think he understood to the exact extent how much resistance within the government from the corrupt politicians and leaders and whatnot that he was going to be facing. I really don't. It's like Mike Tyson said, everybody got a plan until you get punched in the face. That goes for anything. Anything at all.
We're going to have to do the rest of this another time, but I have a question for you both. Let's assume everything you've said is true. Let's assume it's a big club and we ain't in it. Let's assume that the politicians are working against the people and everyone thinks they're stupid, but they're not actually stupid. They're just working for the people they really work for, which is not you. It's the money, it's the banks, it's the globalists, it's the international interests. We understand that the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. If we understand that nobody is coming to save us, if we understand that it is extremely optimistic to put all of this monumental failure down to some degree of ineptitude, when truthfully it is a managed decline and it is very purposeful, and they're doing all of this on purpose. Let's assume that all of that is true, which is the conclusions I came to also. And the only answer I found for this was trying to implement a degree of individual exceptionalism amongst my fans, saying, look, it's all fucked. You need to get as rich as you can, as strong as you can, as charismatic as you can. You need to be uncancelable. You need to have people listen to you. You need to go out there and show that you're not afraid of them. Individual exceptionalism was the only answer I came to combating all of these things. Is there another answer? Was I wrong? What else can we be doing? What else can we be encouraging people to do? Because everything Nick has said is completely correct, and I've known it for a very long time also. If you think a political party is going to fucking turn this shit around, you're out of your mind. So what is the answer? What do we tell people at home to do? What is the solution to this problem?
Have to engage in politics. Have to engage in politics. You know, a lot of people are very down on it. People say, well, you know, we're not going to vote our way out of this. No, but if enough young people who are brilliant get involved in some way, either they become rich or they become influential, you know, in 20 years, we will have a different class of people that are running the show. And, you know, maybe if nothing else, I mean, this is how I sort of imagine it in my mind. We need to create a cadre, a revolutionary class. And by that, I mean, we need lawyers, professionals, entrepreneurs, money people, political people that when called upon, when summoned, can go to Washington, D.C. and run our society for a revolutionary new regime. Because we effectively had that opportunity with Trump. I just think about it from my experience. Trump won the election in 2016, and he had no gang. He didn't have any niggas with him. It was just him. So it's like, who do you run the...
Oh, right. Hey, I ain't gonna lie, that just came out of nowhere, bro. I didn't expect him to man, that's crazy. Hold up, let me go back.
Effectively had that opportunity with Trump. I just think about it from my experience. Trump won the election in 2016, and he had no gang. He didn't have any niggas with him. It was just him. So it's like, who do you run the Treasury? Who do you run the State Department? Well, you got to fall back on who's there. And that's Wall Street. That's the bureaucracy. That's the usual suspects. That's because there was no cadre. You know, they had this idea that they would, you know, they had a website called greatagain.org. They were going to solicit resumes from all the hillbillies and hill people of America. You know, and there are obvious reasons why they trashed that or whatever. But a big reason is they didn't have the personnel. There was no political will. They didn't have organization. So I'm a big believer in people need to create this revolutionary class. That's kind of been my project. And before we get going, though, everybody in the live chat's asking about Vance. Can we talk about that before we all wrap this up?
Yeah, absolutely, bro. I'm hanging out. I'm going to continue streaming after this, so I'm not in a rush. I know, Andrew, it's late for you, Andrew, so I know you might have to go. Nick, I'm going to be here anyway, so if you want to stay on, you're more than welcome. And we could chop it up more about politics. But yeah, we could definitely talk about Vance if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, because we kind of touched on it earlier, and Andrew,
That's why I asked you that question. I was looking at chat. I was like, that's why I asked you to with Vance. Yeah.
And Andrew, you said that you and Tristan like Vance because Vance is an advocate for you guys in Europe and Romania. So that's why I wasn't going to lean in, but I do just wonder, what is your position on Vance? Do you support him, or what's going on there?
Well, it's the infinitely divisible problem. I mean, I'm not going to lie and pretend I know as much about him as you do. You know a lot more about him than I do. You seem to know his sources of funding and all these things, and I don't like to preach ignorance, but it's true. You know a lot more about him than I do. It's a matter of, he is the only one who is sticking up for Europeans' rights to speak freely. He is the only one who mentioned what happened in this country where I have Romanian children. He's the only person in the entire American administration. He was all over wall-to-wall news in Romania, and the Romanians were very afraid of what he was saying. He's the only one sticking up for people in the UK and their complete lack of the ability to speak. Now, I'm not saying that everything else he's done is perfect. I'm not saying I know his history inside out, but I am saying on a base level, initially, what he is saying I completely agree with. Perhaps when that battle is won, then the infinitely divisible problem, once, perhaps if Europe gets turned around and he doesn't have to talk about that anymore, he might say something else I disagree with. But what I've seen of him on the issue I care about, I'm 100% aligned with him. So now you can easily say, but did you know his money came from that? I didn't know. What I did know is that he was the one who was wall to wall in Romania saying what you're doing here is garbage and bullshit. So I support his view he had there, and I respect the fact that he was the one sticking up for us here in Europe. And I'm not saying he's a perfect person, for the same reason I respect Elon for freeing us all on Twitter, and I completely disagree with him on a lot of other things. Perhaps maybe it's just, I'm an older man. Perhaps it is what it is. Perhaps I like to be respectful of people who I think are doing the right thing on some issues. I'm not going to pin him down on every single thing he does I disagree with when he's doing something important that I do agree with, and that fight's not over yet. Until that fight is over, until those orcs are slayed, I just want to let him to do what he's going to do because no one else is doing it. That's my very simple view.
I think we got to slay the elves. I'm more worried about the elves than the orcs. We got to slay the dark elves, if you know what I'm saying, metaphorically and politically. I disagree, and I think that in 2027, the Groypers are going to overthrow Vance. Steve Bannon actually went on his show, and he said that he might run in 2028 because he doesn't think Vance has what it takes. And I'm with Bannon on this one, because Vance is the connector for Silicon Valley. That's how he got the VP slot. That's what gave him all this clout. That's how he got in the Senate. He's the connector for Elon, for Peter Thiel, for David Sachs, for that whole crew. And maybe you're not interested in all that. And look, you have a different perspective. You're in Europe. I know a lot of Europeans that are super pro Vance because he is an advocate for those guys. On some level, I understand because you are in another country. I get that. But at least in America, this guy's a big problem, literally and figuratively. He's fat, and he's like a major problem. So big, conceptually. And so for me, I said this the other day, 2027, the Groypers are going to descend on Iowa, and we will overthrow him. We will overthrow him. Over my dead body will he be the nominee. And you can have it be any way you like. Maybe it'll be someone that hasn't been announced yet. But I'm never Vance. I'm never Vance. I'll never vote for a fat person. I will never vote for, that whole Thanksgiving.
Didn't he vote for Trump? Come on now.
Situation he had going on, but maybe we'll just agree to disagree.
I think I'll tell you something that you already know. You have massive political clout. You have massive political influence. Your attack vectors are something you need to think about heavily, because your attack vectors are not people coming to your door. Your attack vectors are some fucking retard shooting up a school with a list of bullshit in his pocket with your name on it. And that's your attack vector. And I truthfully hope and wish the absolute best for your movement in all ways. I think what you're doing is very positive. I think you're one of the most positive voices on the internet. I've never been against you with a lot of the things you say. I have views on certain people we disagree, and that's absolutely fine. And I truthfully wish the best for the Groyper movement and the best for America. And I'm an American too, and I'm going to be there in September. And I'm not against your movement at all in any way. I just explained why my brother.
The word, this dude just said he gonna be here in September, bro. September. What's going on in September? What's going on in September? There's got to be a reason that he's coming here in September. There's got to be something going on in September. I wonder. I'm not sure. But I wonder if that might be the in September when they host that UFC fight on the White House lawn. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. I'll have to look into that. But I'm curious now.
And I were so pro-Vance, and I'm sure, perhaps, if the roles were reversed, if you were getting dragged in and out of Romanian courtrooms, which were a stitch-up, if you were getting thrown in and out of Romanian jail, if your assets were seized, if your Romanian kids were not allowed to be seen by you, if you were getting charged every 5 minutes for free speech violations for things you tweeted and things you said on emergency meetings, and the only American politician, the only one who said anything in your defense was a guy called J.D. Vance, you wouldn't say, yeah, but fuck you, Vance. You're probably not that stupid. So you'd probably sit there and go, well, that would be pretty retarded and ungrateful to do. You know more about Vance's history than I do. I'm just explaining why my brother and I supported him, because he was the one who was highlighting what was happening to us. And it's as transparent as that.
If I can come into this real quick, because I see here, and actually, Andrew, you beat me to it. I wanted to get your perspective on, the current administration, because obviously me and Nick live in the United States. We're going to be a bit more critical of them because of, we have to deal with the consequences of their decisions, versus when I've seen JD go to Europe, he's been real good about calling out the European government for cucking and not allowing free speech, for saying that you guys need to put more money in when it comes to Ukraine, standing up to Zelensky. He was the one that actually started that argument at the White House, was Zelensky saying you're being very disrespectful, etc. So I can see from your position as an American living in Europe how J.D. Vance has helped you, especially the other thing too I want to add, and I want to toss it to you so you can answer it, or because I don't want to go too much in detail. Me and you have talked privately about this. We know that the Biden administration was heavily involved in your politicized prosecution, right? So anything compared to those dickheads is going to be better. So
I don't want to interrupt, but we have to make one thing very, very, very clear. It is extremely easy for the anon who has a cartoon profile picture and nobody knows his fucking name to sit there all day and be yelling at people like us, telling us who we should go against, what we should say, and all these things. But when you're the one who's literally having their life completely wrecked, you have to look at things in a different perspective. And I'll be honest, I don't give a shit that his wife is Indian. I give a shit that he was the one saying to the Romanian government, you can't do this to American citizens who have done nothing wrong. That's what I give a shit about. And I argue anybody else who was in a cockroach-infested jail cell would probably think the same, including Nick and including you, Myron. You'd sit there in jail and go, well, finally an American politician gives a shit because this is completely unfair. Now, maybe you're different than I. Maybe you would say, fuck you, I don't want your help. Your wife's Indian. Maybe you would. I don't know. But I'm saying that what I have seen of him in my own personal experience has been very positive. Doesn't mean he's a perfect person. Doesn't mean he's the best VP. Doesn't mean I know everything about him. Doesn't mean I even disagree with a lot of what you're saying. I'm just explaining why my brother and I would then support him. It's a very obvious link there. It's not a complicated conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, the administration prior didn't say anything or help you guys out at all. So I'm completely, empathetic to your position on why you support him, because, the U.S. government turned their back on you during Biden administration. At least
the U.S. government worked with the Brits to lock us up. Blinken signed it. Blinken himself said, get him. Like, this was the highest possible level matrix attack to the tip top.
That's insane, bro. That is insane. And this is how you know that they see him as an immediate threat to what they're trying to do. Man, that's insane. But with that being said, man, we're going to go ahead and end it off here. We have been live for a good, decent chunk of time. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get Rev up on here, and we're going to let him take it from here. Make sure y'all share with your friends, your families, your mummies, your aunties, your grannies, and everybody else that y'all know. And with that being said, we're going to get up on out of here, man.
Serious, and you're looking for a Christ man, the one who anointed with the Lord, with the Spirit of the Lord, to do his will. I'm that nigga. Motherfucker, 'cause it's my... You're really serious and you're looking for a Christ man, the one who anointed with the Lord, with the Spirit of the Lord, to do his will. I'm that nigga. Motherfucker, 'cause it's my world.